Have you ever wondered how a truck driver sleeps through the night when it is minus 30 degrees outside? Because at minus 30, exposed skin can freeze in about 10 minutes. Diesel fuel starts turning into something closer to candle wax. Batteries give up and die quietly in the dark. Steel becomes brittle enough to crack, and yet every single winter night, thousands of drivers across Canada, Alaska, Scandinavia, and Siberia climb into their sleeper bunks, pull the curtains closed, and sleep like babies while the world outside is actively trying to kill them. So how do they do it? Is it just running the engine all night and burning money until sunrise? Is it some secret military-grade sleeping bag that the rest of us have never heard of? Or is there a piece of technology hiding inside that truck that most people outside the industry do not even know exists? The answer, as it usually is in trucking, is not one single thing. It is a combination of clever engineering, hard-earned survival wisdom passed from driver to driver, and a little metal box roughly the size of a shoebox that might just be the most underrated piece of equipment in the entire industry. Stick around because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a human being sleeps comfortably at temperatures that shut down entire cities. Let us start by understanding what minus 30 actually does to a truck. Because this is not just a story about a driver feeling a bit chilly. This is a story about an entire machine fighting for its life, all night, every night, for months at a time. At minus 30 Celsius, which is about minus 22 Fahrenheit, standard diesel fuel begins to gel. Diesel naturally contains paraffin wax, and in normal temperatures that wax stays dissolved and invisible. But as the temperature drops, the wax starts crystallizing, and those crystals clog fuel filters the way cholesterol clogs an artery. First, the fuel turns cloudy, then it thickens, then the filters block completely. A truck with gelled fuel does not start, it does not idle, it does not do anything, it just sits there, 40 tons of frozen steel, waiting for someone with a heat gun and a lot of patience. Then there are the batteries. Lead-acid batteries are chemical devices, and chemistry slows down in the cold. A battery that delivers full cranking power at 20 degrees can lose half of its available power or more at minus 30. And here's the cruel part. At the exact moment the battery is at its weakest, the engine is at its hardest to turn, because the oil inside it has thickened into something closer to honey. Cold battery, stiff engine, that is the combination that leaves trucks dead in parking lots every winter morning. And it does not stop there. Air brake lines can freeze from condensation moisture trapped inside the system. Rubber door seals freeze solid and tear when you pull the handle. Windshields crack from thermal shock when warm air hits frozen glass too fast. Even the grease in the fifth wheel stiffens up and inside the cab. Without heat, the interior of a truck reaches the outside temperature surprisingly fast. We are talking a couple of hours, maybe less if the wind is blowing. People sometimes imagine that a closed vehicle holds warmth like a house does. It does not. A truck cab is a thin metal and plastic shell with giant single panes of glass on three sides. A sleeping human produces about as much heat as a single old-fashioned light bulb, which is nowhere near enough to fight an Arctic night pressing in from every direction. So the real challenge is not just keeping the driver warm. It is keeping the driver warm without draining the batteries, without gelling the fuel, without violating idling laws, and without burning hundreds of dollars of diesel every single night. And that is exactly where things get interesting. For decades, the answer to all of this was simple. Brutal, expensive, loud, but simple. You just never turn the engine off. Drivers running northern routes through Canada, Alaska, and the Nordic countries would let that big diesel idle all night long, every night. For the entire winter season, the logic was straightforward. The engine stays warm, so it will always restart. The coolant stays hot, so the cab heater keeps blowing. The alternator keeps the batteries charged. The fuel keeps moving through the lines, so it cannot gel. Everything survives until morning, and the only cost is fuel. But that cost is enormous. A heavy-duty diesel at idle burns roughly 3 to 4 liters of fuel per hour, which is close to a gallon. Run that for 10 hours overnight, and you have burned 30 to 40 liters of diesel just to sleep. Do that every night for a 5-month winter, and one single truck has burned through thousands of liters of fuel while going absolutely nowhere. Multiply that across a fleet of 200 trucks, and the numbers stop being an expense and start being a catastrophe. Fleet managers have looked at those fuel reports and genuinely wondered if it would be cheaper to buy every driver a hotel room. Idling is also surprisingly hard on the engine itself, which is something a lot of people outside the industry do not realize. Big diesels are designed to work under load. At idle, cylinder temperatures are too low for clean combustion, which causes carbon buildup, injector fouling, and a phenomenon called cylinder wall washing, where unburned fuel literally washes the protective oil film off the cylinder walls. An engine that idles excessively wears out faster than one that works hard. It is a bit like a marathon runner losing fitness because they only ever stroll. And then the law got involved. Many states, provinces, and European countries now enforce anti-idling regulations with real fines attached, driven by emissions and noise concerns. Some jurisdictions limit idling to just a few minutes. So even drivers who were willing to pay the fuel bill suddenly found that the old way was not just expensive. In many places, it was illegal. The industry needed a better answer. And the better answer, when it arrived, turned out to be brilliant. Meet the diesel-fired parking heater. If you have never heard of one, prepare to be quietly impressed, because this humble device is one of the smartest pieces of equipment ever bolted into a commercial vehicle. Two German companies dominate this world, Webasto and Eberspacher, both with decades of experience building combustion heaters. And the concept behind their products is beautifully simple. The heater is a small self-contained unit, mounted under the bunk or in a side compartment, that pulls a tiny amount of diesel directly from the truck's own fuel tank. It burns that fuel in a small, sealed combustion chamber, completely separate from the cab air, and a fan blows the resulting heat into the sleeper. The exhaust exits underneath the truck, safely away from the driver. The main engine stays completely off, silent, cold, resting. And here's the number that makes fleet managers smile. A typical bunk heater burns roughly 0.1 to 0.2 liters of fuel per hour. Compare that to the 3 or 4 liters per hour of idling, and you're looking at a fuel saving of over 90%. The heater sips fuel the way a hummingbird sips nectar, while the idling engine drinks it like a college student at a free bar. Over a single winter, the fuel savings from one of these heaters can exceed the entire purchase and installation cost of the unit. It is one of the rare pieces of equipment in trucking that genuinely pays for itself, and then keeps paying. These heaters are thermostat controlled, so the experience for the driver is wonderfully boring. Set the temperature, climb into the bunk, sleep. The unit cycles on and off through the night, holding the sleeper at a comfortable 20 degrees while the world outside sits at -30. Think about that for a second. A 50-degree temperature difference maintained all night, managed by a box you could carry under one arm, burning about as much fuel per hour as a shot glass holds. Now, there's a second type of heater in this family that deserves its own moment, and that is the coolant heater. Instead of warming the cab air, this unit warms the engine's coolant and circulates it through the engine block. Why does that matter? Because a warm engine starts in the morning. No gelled injectors, no crying starter motor dragging a frozen crankshaft, no block heater cord to plug in, because the heater runs off the truck's own fuel. In serious winter operations, many trucks carry both types. One keeps the driver alive through the night. The other makes sure the truck comes back to life in the morning. It is a two-part insurance policy against the cold, and drivers who have both rarely go back. Now, in North America especially, there's another solution that takes the whole concept a step further. The Auxiliary Power Unit, or APU. And if the bunk heater is a clever gadget, the APU is a full life support system. An APU is essentially a miniature generator mounted on the frame rail of the truck, traditionally powered by its own small 2- or 3-cylinder diesel engine. It produces electricity, heating, and air conditioning for the sleeper, completely independent of the main engine. In other words, it is a tiny truck living on the side of the big truck, doing all the housekeeping while the big engine sleeps. Why does this matter so much in America specifically? Because, as we have covered in previous videos, American trucking culture is built around drivers who genuinely live in their trucks. The long-haul owner-operator running coast to coast is not just sleeping in the bunk. They are cooking in it, watching TV in it, running a fridge, a microwave, a laptop, sometimes a CPAP machine that they medically need to sleep safely. All of that requires real electrical power, hour after hour, night after night. A simple air heater cannot run a microwave. An APU can. A diesel APU burns somewhere around half a liter to a liter of fuel per hour. That is more than a bunk heater, but still a fraction of what idling the main engine costs, and it delivers full household-style power in exchange for a driver spending 250 nights a year in the truck. The math works out quickly, and the newest generation takes it even further. Battery electric APUs have no engine at all. They are big battery banks that charge from the alternator while the truck drives, then silently power the sleeper's climate control and appliances all night. Zero fuel burned overnight, zero emissions, almost zero noise, which drivers who have slept next to a rattling diesel APU will tell you is a luxury all by itself. And because nothing is combusting, they are legal even in the strictest anti-idling zones in places like California. The trade-off, as always, is money. A good APU can run anywhere from $8,000 to $13,000 installed, which is a serious chunk of change. But for high-mileage drivers, the fuel savings alone typically pay that back within a couple of years, and everything after that is profit. In trucking, saving money is the whole game, and the APU plays it well. But here's the thing, technology is only half of this story. The other half is the drivers themselves, because the people who run ice roads in Manitoba, winter routes through northern Sweden, or the Dalton Highway in Alaska have developed habits that are pure distilled survival wisdom. And their first rule is one that should get your attention. Never trust the heater with your life. Machines fail, fuel pumps quit, glow pins burn out, fuses blow at 3 a.m. for no reason at all, and at -30, a failed heater in the middle of the night is not an inconvenience. It is the beginning of an emergency. So experienced cold weather drivers build layers of backup into everything they do. Starting with the bedding, serious northern drivers carry proper expedition-grade sleeping bags, often rated to -30 or -40. The same kind mountaineers take up big peaks. On top of that, wool blankets, because wool insulates even when damp, and underneath an insulated mattress topper, which is a detail almost everyone gets wrong. Cold does not just come from the air above you. It radiates up through the bunk from below, from all that frozen steel underneath the mattress. Most people pile insulation on top of themselves and forget what is under them, then wonder why their back is freezing at 2 a.m. The pros insulate down first. Second, the glass. Windows are the single biggest heat leak in the entire cab. That big, beautiful windshield that gives you the view all day becomes a wall of cold radiating at you all night. So drivers use insulated windshield covers, thermal curtains on the side windows, and heavy dividing curtains between the sleeper and the front seats. Sealing off the sleeper compartment dramatically shrinks the space the heater has to fight for, and a well-sealed bunk holds warmth like a thermos. Some drivers cut custom foam panels for every window. It looks a little strange from the outside. It works beautifully on the inside. Third, clothing, and here's the detail that surprises almost everyone. Wearing every piece of clothing you own to bed can actually make you colder. If you overdress inside a good sleeping bag, you sweat, and that moisture then chills you for the rest of the night. Damp is the enemy. Experienced drivers sleep in clean, dry base layers, warm socks, and a knit hat, because an enormous amount of heat escapes through your head, and then they let the sleeping bag and the heater do the heavy lifting. Dry and layered beats bulky and sweaty every single time. Fourth, fuel discipline. Up north, drivers run winter diesel, a seasonal blend treated with additives, or cut with kerosene so it resists gelling down to much lower temperatures than summer fuel. They keep their tanks topped up overnight because a full tank has less airspace, and less airspace means less condensation forming water in the fuel. They carry bottles of anti-gel additive in the cab as emergency backup, and in truly brutal cold, many will set an alarm and do a middle-of-the-night idle cycle, running the main engine for half an hour to circulate warm fuel, warm the block, and top up the batteries before going back to sleep. It costs a little sleep, it prevents a very bad morning. And fifth, the unwritten rule of the North, the one that is not about equipment at all. You never ever drive past a stopped truck in extreme cold without checking on the driver. Flash your lights, get on the radio, pull over if you have to, because everyone up there understands the same quiet truth. The machines are tough, the technology is good, but the margin for error at -30 is thin, and out on those empty roads, other drivers are the only rescue service that is guaranteed to come. Now, if you want to see cold weather trucking pushed to its absolute limit, you have to look east to the Russian winter roads known as zimniks, seasonal routes carved across frozen rivers and tundra, where temperatures can fall to -50 and below. At -50, the rulebook changes completely out there. Many drivers genuinely do not shut their engines off for the entire season. There are well-documented accounts of trucks idling continuously for 1 or 2 months straight, because at those temperatures, a stopped engine may simply never start again until spring, and being stranded is not a business problem. It is a survival problem. Siberian drivers insulate their trucks like Arctic explorers insulate themselves. Custom quilted covers over the grille and hood to hold engine heat in, extra insulation packed around fuel lines and batteries. Some run double glazing on cab windows. Many carry blowtorches. And yes, they use them carefully warming fuel tanks, axles, and airlines that have frozen solid. They travel in convoys where possible, because a lone truck on a Zimnik is a gamble no experienced driver wants to take. Compared to that world, a Canadian night at -30, with a Webasto humming quietly under the bunk, and a good sleeping bag on standby, starts to look almost cozy. Almost. So, how do truck drivers sleep warmly at -30? The honest answer is that it is a system, not a single trick. A diesel-fired heater sipping a shot glass of fuel per hour to keep the bunk at 20 degrees, maybe a coolant heater guarding the engine, or an APU running the whole sleeper like a small apartment. Winter blend fuel that refuses to gel. Insulated covers, turning the cab into a thermos. A sleeping bag rated for a mountain summit waiting as backup. And above all, a driver with the experience to check every single piece of that system before closing their eyes. Because they know the heater is wonderful, right up until the night it is not. And the lesson here is the same one that keeps showing up in every corner of the trucking world. Whether we are talking about Scandinavian trucks built for ice or road trains built for the outback. The trucks and drivers that survive are not the toughest ones or the most powerful ones, or the ones with the most chrome. They are the ones prepared for the exact conditions in front of them. The drivers sleeping soundly at -30 tonight are not lucky. They are ready. And in the far north, ready is the only thing that counts. Have you ever slept in a vehicle in serious cold? And would you trust a little diesel heater with your life at -30? Drop it in the comments below. We genuinely want to know. Thanks for watching Titan Haulers, and remember to subscribe for much more.